If you're looking for a perfect guy or a perfect gal, you will be disappointed. Absolute perfection belongs to Allah.
What's the most attractive trait that women find in men and vice versa?
Women do not want a yes man. She's not going to be attracted to you. Having a goal, having a direction, that's very attractive. You have to figure out what you want in a husband or a wife and what you are willing to give. Once you figure that out, well, now go to the apps. Now go online. Now, if we can actually help youngsters prepare and let them know how to stay away from Mr. Wrong, how to choose Mr. Right, I believe we can make a dent on that divorce rate.
What are the best questions to ask someone to understand compatibility?
What are and say why? What are your? I know I've shared some of these things with people and they're like, man, I wish I knew this 20 years ago. I'm like, same here.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome onto the Muslim Made podcast. What an incredible guest we have today. We have Sharif Faizullah. In a world of swipes and likes, one man teaches Gen Z Muslim women how not to fall in love with Mr. Wrong. Known as the Mr. Miyagi of Muslim marriages, Sharif Faizullah founded Marriage.mba to help Gen Z Muslimas find their Mr. Right using his proven 10-step marriage roadmap. He's on a mission to divorce-proof the next generation of Muslim marriages. Assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling?
Wa alaikum assalam. I'm feeling fantastic. It's an honor to be here.
Alhamdulillah. I think we were having a small discussion before the podcast began about your inspirations, your influences, and how important this book is today. You mentioned how we're living in a world where, you know, in terms of the online presence of online dating, getting to know someone online, it's vastly growing. It might even be the most popular, the most fastest growing way Muslims are meeting, right? Mm-hmm. So I found so much benefit from reading a book, even though I'm a guy. The book is aimed towards women. I wanted to hear a little bit about why you approached the book or why you oriented the book towards women versus men.
When I was thinking about the book, I actually asked my wife. So I have two options. Which gender should I choose? I've been working with brothers for many years. That's easy for me. But she asked me, what about the sisters? And I said, why? She said, well, they need this more. They actually go through heartbreaks more than brothers do. It doesn't mean we don't go through our own version of heartbreaks, but that was my first inspiration. And then my younger sister, she went through a divorce where I did not see some of the red flags in that guy.
Wow.
At that time, I was younger. And then now, alhamdulillah, I have two daughters. And coronavirus time, a lot of people were dying. And said, well, what if I'm one of them? I die. Who is going to guide my daughters?
Yeah.
And this confusing jungle of love and marriage, I wanted to leave a step-by-step roadmap for the next generation.
Tell us about like your CV a little bit. What's your career been like? How did you end up being in a place where you felt like this needed to be out there?
I've always been attached to the hip with Muslim communities, with youngsters. I remember since high school, you know, with youth groups and doing programs, doing events, I've always been there. I've attended a lot of youth camps. So I've gotten to know the struggles and I've gone through my own struggles, you know, shoulder to shoulder with other youngsters. Yeah. And then right after marriage, I worked with a community in the Bronx. And then a couple of years later, another community in other parts of the Bronx, right? So I grew up in Brooklyn, but I ended up working in the Bronx. And my third project was establishing a full-time Quran Academy for young scholars from second grade to high school. Alhamdulillah, some of these students, they are going to, you know, top-notch colleges. So I don't know. I had so many options. And my wife was asking me, like, why don't you choose an easier option for your job, for your career? Like, if I don't do this, who else is going to do that? Yeah. Someone has to do this. So I would love to do this so that inshallah it will be a source of income. At the same time, I will be able to help the next generation.
Subhanallah. Do you mind taking us through the experience that helped you approach relationships today? You were talking about how it was really important for you to understand how Muslims were like today. Like you said, hip Muslims, right? Muslims who feel like the older generation didn't understand them. What was one experience that really stood out to you as like, okay, now I kind of understand Muslims today a little bit better?
That generational gap, it's always been there. I think it'll always be there. Mm-hmm. So right now, I'm working on recording some videos, going through chapter by chapter. And I'm working with some Gen Z Muslimas who are my co-hosts because I'm a 40 plus year old man telling women about love and marriage. Yeah. I want to run it by them. Does it make sense to them? The topics and the questions I'm bringing up, does it make sense to you? So I think that's going to happen pretty much in every generation. I remember when Sheikh Yasir Birjas and others, they were talking about it. They're, of course, 20, 30 years, older than me. And I was learning from them. So what I realized is you have to accept that. Every generation will have that. So you need to kind of grow up a little bit. Let's say if I ask, at that time when I was 20, my single friends, hey, tell me about marriage. Well, they're going to be as clueless as me. So you see, you really need to go to someone who has been through the test of marriage for at least a decade or two. Wow. And then they are able to hey, looking back, this is what I would do differently.
Yeah, I think you chose to tackle one of the toughest things within the Muslim Ummah, which is love, because it is I feel like it's such a taboo topic within families, not necessarily like love or not necessarily marriage or intimacy, but specifically love. What do you think about that?
Can I share a quick story?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is one of my favorite stories of all time. So I grew up with, Romeo and Juliet and all these other fairy tale. This is a story of a husband who was on his deathbed. And he was very close to the end of his life. And the wife came up to him and said, hey, many years ago when you came to me asking for my hand in marriage, I said, yes, I have a request. After you die, inshallah, when we are in Jannah, I want you to ask Allah to marry me. She said, I want to be your wife in Jannah. And the husband is, of course, my love. And after that, he passes away. So the wife mourns his loss. And a little while later, she receives a proposal from the governor of the time. Of course, he's, very wealthy man, high status. But she says, thank you so much for your proposal, but I cannot accept it because I heard Rasulullah said that whoever will be the last of someone's husband in this world will be their husband in Jannah. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And because of that, I cannot accept your proposal because I'm already engaged to my husband in Jannah.
In Jannah, subhanAllah.
And that was Abu Darda and Darda, those of you who know, companions of Rasulullah.
Yeah.
If that is not true love, tell me what is.
SubhanAllah, I think Muslims, what kind of separates us a little bit is when we think about love and we think about our relationships, it's not just in this world. It's not just for 100 years. We're trying to make it work for forever, literally forever. Yeah. It's such in putting it into that context, it kind of brings to mind how important that decision is when it comes to relationships. Throughout the book, you talk about how important this decision is. How to approach it, what are kind of the pitfalls or common mistakes. Mm-hmm. You've worked with so many people. I wanted to kind of hear your perspective on the most common misconceptions or mistakes that you see over and over again when it comes to finding this big concept as the one.
So the word people use, like the word soulmate is thrown around. Yeah, I want to find my soulmate. Or they say, I want to find Mr. Perfect. So I would recommend that we don't use the word Mr. Perfect because absolute perfection belongs to Allah. If you're looking for a perfect guy or a perfect gal, you will be disappointed. However, the word I would like you to use is Mr. Right. And go beyond that, say Mr. Right for me. Because this same guy, an amazing guy with good deen and good character and everything, might be an excellent match for someone, but might be a horrible match for you. It doesn't mean he's a bad person. It doesn't mean he's Mr. Wrong, but he may not be Mr. Right for you. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to disavow ourselves of this idea of, if I don't marry that one person, I'm gonna have a miserable marriage. So that's been my realization after 14 years of marriage, because once you realize that, you do your best to stay away from Mr. Wrong and find Mr. Right, inshallah. Now you will need all those skills to make your marriage successful.
SubhanAllah. I think we're in a new world of love, right? Where we were mentioning how we're living in kind of like a swipe right economy when it comes to our relationships. Has that perspective changed in terms of how to approach Mr. Right if we're now in a world where everything is somewhat very face value?
I think it's even more important that we do things in real life. So sure, apps and those things make life easy, but there's something called analysis paralysis. When you are given too many choices, what happens? You don't choose anything. Like in business, this is something that, people talk about all the time. Do not give them too many options. If you do, they're going to be stuck. They're not going to make any choice at all. So I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they tend to avoid real life, and then they just focus on that. But if you know what you want, let's say you know your deal breakers, you know your deal makers, and then you can actually take that skill. Now you can find someone in real life. You can find someone online, not a problem. So I don't want people to make online the first step. This is what people like, hey, I'm looking for someone. And the first thing they do, oh, let's go to a matchmaking website. Let's go to an app. Like, that's like step 6. Have you done step 1 to 5? So this is one of the biggest mistakes people make, is just like, hey, let me go find someone.
Well, I think what's really interesting, I think especially in like ethnic cultures like ours, is we talk about getting married as like almost like the end of your life. Like, you know, we kind of talk about it with our family, our friends, like, all right, you got to get married. We kind of hype it up within the masjid, within our friend group, like, you know, once you're married, you know, and then you get married. And then I know so many people that kind of look around in life and they're saying, all right, now what? But I liked how you approached it in your book, where it's like, no, when you get married, that's kind of like the start of your life. Where did that perspective come from?
Well, I think it's the start of a new stage of your life. So, because some people that might be, oh, you know, single, if you're single, you're a loser. That kind of mentality, I do not agree with that. I don't think like marriage does not define us. I know quite a lot of people, somehow like Imam An-Nawawi, Ibn Taymiyyah. There's so many people, they chose to stay single. They have left massive legacy for the ummah, for the Muslim nation. So to look at your life and value it just because of singlehood and couplehood, I don't agree with that. I think we're beyond that. But on that note, you actually have to know that you have options. So I've spoken to a lot of single Muslimas recently, and I was shocked to realize they didn't even know that they have options. Where, hey, you know what? You could have a marriage that is somewhat early, maybe while you're in college or right out of college, and you build your life together with your husband. You figure out life together. Maybe you still stay with your parents, you know, while you figure those things out. Or you can marry later when you figure everything, your career, your education, you figure out who you are as a person, and then you get married. So the first one it's called cornerstone, you know, like building a foundation, like the first stone that you put to build that foundation. Second one is called capstone, where you're done with everything. You just put a capstone as a decoration at the top of the building. So I want you to know that you have those two options and you get to choose. So there's a lot of people who are pro early marriage and a lot of people pro late marriage. And they think to like, you know what? Everyone needs to get married early. Like really, like everyone? Like, no. Getting married early is a bad idea. Everyone has to wait until they get married, until they're 30. Like really, everyone? Even if you're 20, 22 and you're mature, you have found your person. You want her to just wait 8 more years just because you want her to? That doesn't make any sense. So I think this binary way of looking at marriage, the question is, when do you get married? When is the right time? It depends on your priorities. So whether it's cornerstone is good for you or capstone is good for you, you have to ask other questions to figure that out. But I want you to be open to that idea. Don't go into extreme and try everyone to convert to your idea.
One thing I realized is that people often feel like there's like a ticking time clock when trying to get married. So
especially for women, like biological clock is a big deal.
Right. I've definitely had that conversation with my wife as well. But what are some things that people tend to overlook? Because the reality is, you're an individual before you're trying to get married. There's a lot of things that you already have in your life. Yeah. You are already a certain type of person. Yeah. So what common themes do you find that people tend to overlook when searching for someone?
Okay, so let's go through a couple of issues here. Number one, just because you get married, does that mean you have to move out right away? What do you guys think?
Move out as in like
husband and wife, they move into their own separate, location to live.
I think the vast majority of people do in order to, I guess, enter that fold of marriage.
Exactly. So that's an assumption. So the assumption is, well, if I get married, I have to move in together. And because of that, a lot of the guys and girls, they're like, oh, I'm not ready for marriage yet. I found that to be not the case. I know quite a few people, they have gotten married and they are, with the support of their parents, they have finished their education, gotten into their career. When they're stable enough, okay, now then they move in. Maybe it took them 2 years or 5 years or 6 years. That's fine. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, well, if I get married, I need to have a child right away. What do you guys think?
Of course not. 3 years and still no.
See, there you go. So this is another idea. Like, oh my God, if I get married now, I'm 20 for a woman. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to have a child right away. No, This is why I recommend 2 to 5 years. Like, do your best to have 2 to 5 years, just you and your husband and no child.
Yeah, you mentioned that within your book, saying that it's really critical for new couples to have a good portion of those first few years just with each other. What's the intention behind that? What are the, I guess, pillars that you're trying to develop with someone in those first few years?
So the honeymoon period, you want to make it as long as possible. That's the first thing, right? And then when real life hits you, if you have like your bank account, your love account is full, oh man, you can withdraw from it. Because when that new baby comes, you will not be able to sleep properly, right? You're going to wake up so many times in the middle of the night. So that first couple of years, because let's say, even if you've been, Muslims, if you've been in the dating scene and you know each other for 5-10 years before marriage, even then, that intimate life, that's new. So as a husband and wife, you want to give yourself enough time to make that bond strong. Now you can have somebody else. I remember someone mentioned this very nicely. They're like, hey, when you get married, it's you and your wife, right? Holding hands together. And when then a child comes, you know what happens? The child is in the middle. So the husband, the dad holds the child's hand and the mom holds the child's hand. The child becomes, the kind of separates the mom and dad. And I have 3 children. And I'll tell you, for the first child, that was 100% true. Like I had to learn to grow into the role of a father. It was a surprise for me. I didn't go to school how to be a dad. I didn't go to school how to be a husband, right? But the second and third child, it got a little bit easier. So that's why I strongly recommend to at least spend 2 to 5 years. Of course, it depends on how many children you want. It also depends on when you get married. So going back to what you were saying, so let's think about it. So you don't have to move in together right away. You don't have to have a child right away. As soon as you get married, do you have to stop your education? Absolutely not. So you're like, hey, you know what? I just finished my bachelor's, but I want to finish my master's. Well, talk to the guy. Are you okay with me completing my master's? He's like, sure, not a problem. See, so there are so many of these things where we take them as those assumptions, we take them as belief. This is the only way. So I'm asking you to like question them. So there are a lot of, I have seen so many youngsters, they are mature enough, mashallah, good character. They are ready, but these things are holding them back.
Right. How do you think we can break those barriers, especially when it comes to like cultural pressures, or let's say it's not just in our head, we feel ready. We want to navigate that in terms of society, because as Muslims, we are very well connected.
The biggest way that I know is enroll your parents as early as possible. You were talking to me earlier about, like you and your dad, like cutting each other's hair, right? Yeah. It's such an amazing thing, subhanAllah. And then that when you have that type of bond, you get to talk about this stuff. It's not a taboo topic anymore, right? So if you say, hey, mom and dad, it's dinner table, just ask, hey, mom and dad, how did you guys meet? Like, just ask. So why did you, and then maybe ask the dad, hey, why did you marry mom? Even if it's something like, maybe it was, some friends got them together. However, they got married. When you start that conversation, it opens that window. It opens that door. You can like not talk about marriage at all for 5-10 years and then just find a guy, say, hey, mom, dad, hey, I found someone, and just drop that bomb on their lap. That's not going to work. That's when parents become your enemy instead of your allies.
So how do you know you're not ready? Like when should you kind of hit the brakes?
As a man, if you are a mature person, a responsible person, you have a source of income, even if it's a part-time job, that's fine. And you have the long-term goal. Hey, you know what? I'm going to marry this person and I'm willing to make a lifelong commitment to her. I think he's ready. And of course, I'm not talking about if you're 16, you're in high school, like I'm not just wait a little bit, okay? Because I know some of our youngsters are like so eager, like, no, just wait. So if you're 18, 20 and above, and you are mature enough, I know 20-year-olds who make 6-figure. Now, when they like, and they are ready, but they're like, well, but they're not mature enough. Why? Well, because they're playing video games the whole day, during the whole weekend. They don't do their own laundry. They never brought grocery for their house. They never helped out around the house. So the parents look at them as a little baby boy, even though he's making 6-figure. Yeah. So it's not being ready in terms of money. It's also being ready in terms of responsibility. Like, can I put myself into being a husband and inshallah very soon being a father?
Well, I think as a society, we've gotten to the point where someone can make a significant amount of income but not have a lot of maturity.
Yes.
I think that today what's really unique is that we can kind of have like double life almost, like whereas we can get an education, we can get a job in tech or finance or business, doctor, lawyer, engineer, and we can still be supported in our childish behaviors. Whereas in the past, in order for you to get those goals, let's say go to school, or in order for you to be in an environment to support that kind of income, you have to really man up, right?
Yeah.
What do you think that, boys can do today in order to like enter the fold of manhood, if they're like, man, I really want to be a Muslim, and embody like the masculine Muslim traits?
I would ask you to look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the best role model. He fought in battles, and he did not hide behind the other like soldiers. Like he was in the front of the line. So if you want that level of leadership, any opportunity that you get where you could be a leader, join in, raise your hand. That's the first thing. So from middle school and high school, this is something like we have to encourage them to just be a leader, because a wife wants to marry a leader, even if it's the leader of the household. She could have a PhD, she could be making 6-figure. Still at the end of the day, she wants her husband to be the, you lead this family. So that's the first thing. And then I think if it's too crass, you can cut it out. But so I tell them about two things. Like as a man, you need to have two things. You need to have a backbone and you need to have balls. So by backbone, I mean, you need to stand for something. I don't know who said something. I think it's attributed to Malcolm X by mistake. I don't know the exact source. They said, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So you've got to stand for something. You go all direction, like a shiny object syndrome everywhere in terms of your career, in terms of money making, all over the place. That's not attractive. Stick with one thing. Yeah, try out different things, not a problem. But if you give up too easily, how do you know? Maybe you're at the finish line and you just quit right like an inch before that. That would be sad. So that's the thing about having that backbone. You need to have that backbone. You stand for something. This is why women do not want a yes man. If you talk to her, you agree with everything. This is going to be a boring marriage, and you will bore her to death. Like she's not going to be attracted to you. This is serious. Like you don't want to be a yes man. At the same time, on the other side of it, you don't want to be a toxic man, where like you are the tyrant, you are the dictator. It's my way or the highway. You don't want to be that either. So you want to balance between that too. And having balls, by that, what I mean is having the courage to stay the course. You find someone and you make a lifelong commitment. You know what? I will never leave you. I will always love you. And I will do whatever we need to do to make this marriage work and go to Jannah together. As a husband, you say that to your wife. If you can actually genuinely mean it when you say it, not just pretend, actually mean it, that is going to transform your marriage.
SubhanAllah. I'm wondering that over a decade and a half of working with so many couples, I'm wondering from your perspective, what's the most attractive trait that women find in men and vice versa?
So if you put those two things together that I said, you can say confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence. Someone who knows what they want out of life. So if someone asks you, so what's your plan 5-10 years from now? You're like, I don't know. I'm just still figuring it out. It's not that attractive. Like, hey, I'm working on this project, or I am pursuing this career and I want to do this internship. So even if you don't achieve that, maybe even if you pivot, that's okay. Having a goal, having a direction, that's very attractive.
It's interesting because I think specifically with a lot of women, right? Kind of navigating love on their own, right? Not being able to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
They're kind of taking cues from, like you said, the Romeo Juliet, the whatever they're seeing on social media, and it's super toxic. And now, like with the advent of technology and it being the fastest and probably the most popular way that people are meeting, what do you feel like is the most successful way for singles looking to get married while utilizing apps, online, Instagram, or social media?
Right now, we're looking at apps. Like last couple of decades, now AI is on the scene. So hopefully AI will make this easier. And then 20 years from now, technology might change. But all of this is actually the second part of it. First part, you have to figure out what you want in a husband or a wife and what you are willing to give. Once you figure that out, well, now go to the apps. Now go online. Now it's basically that network effect. I'm sure you guys know. So like, you tell 3 of your people and they tell 3 people. So that's how you find someone. Ask any couple who got married and ask them, how did you got introduced to your wife, to your spouse? How? Oh, one of my friends, one of my siblings, its coworker, maybe MSA in the masjid, local community. It's all proximity. It's all about introduction. So we are so seduced to the idea of, oh my God, we have so many fish in the world. I can literally marry, out of 4 billion people. Like it's not as simplistic as that. So once you know what you actually want, then use those. So the mistake people make is they switch the order. They go online, a lot of young women, and then now they're confused. They're like, okay, what kind of guy are you looking for? And then they give you this range and like, well, I want a guy who is between this and this height. So let's say she chooses something. You know what? I don't want who is anyone who is shorter than, let's say, 6 feet. Like, okay, what if the guy is 5 feet and 11 inches tall? You know what the algorithm is gonna do? The algorithm is not gonna show you that guy. And that's the trick. That's the trap a lot of people don't realize. So when you limit your option like that, you are automatically saying no to a lot of people. And I know quite a few marriages where they found each other through apps, but that's like the rare few. Majority of the marriages happened in real life. So even if you are communicating with someone online, take it, IRL as soon as possible. Because that's where shaitan lives. That is literally the trap. That's where you can flirt with each other, talk to each other endlessly. Oh, but our goal is marriage, inshallah, one day. Like you're just wasting time. And then maybe you get entangled, emotionally, romantically. And now to get out of that, it just becomes a whole messy situation. So if you meet someone who has the potential, take that in real life as soon as possible.
What's really interesting is you mentioned shaitan, and something that we wanted to talk about, I think more in the macro sense, was what do you believe? Like, we're also talking about relationships with people, right? Mm-hmm. But where a lot of good intentioned people kind of mess up is when shaitan gets involved. What do we need to understand about shaitans, especially as a Muslim, right? What do we need to understand about shaitan's relationship with mankind, with us, to understand why sometimes good people do or get inclined to do bad things?
The story of Barsisa comes to mind. You guys may know the story of this couple of brothers who left their sister with this, worshipper of Allah. He was known to be the most pious person of that time. And then, long story short, at the end, what happened? He ended up committing murder. And at the end, he died as a disbeliever. So anyone who says that, you know what, I'm not worried about zina. It's okay. I'm intermingling with women. It's okay if they are on my DMs. I'm texting them, privately. It's okay, inshallah. Allah will protect. I'm okay. If you have that arrogance a lot, that could be the door that shaitan just opened. This is how a lot of good people that I know, they fell into that trap. It started off innocently. And this is where the idea of, can men and women be friends, where it's crazy. Yeah. Like I actually asked so many people, I'm like, so far, not one guy has ever said yes to this answer.
But what's interesting is that if you poll women, the vast majority of women believe men and women can just be friends, platonic.
Yeah, and do you know, like of every single, there's a lot of sensitive topic I talk about, a lot of taboo topic. The one thing I had most women fight me on was that one.
Really?
They're why do you not think? True. They're like, not true. No, men and women can be friends. And they're like, well, then I tell them, well, let's look at the consequences. And I asked them a simple question. I was talking to, so she's not a Muslim. She's a speech coach and she's in her 40s. And I asked her, like, well, are you okay if your husband is like texting a woman, let's say 8 p.m. at night because, she's his, old friend from the college days, whatnot. And they're just talking. Maybe he's laughing with her. Like, how would you feel? And she hesitated for a bit. She was so convinced, like, absolutely, it's okay. I trust my husband. See, that's the thing. It's not, going back to your question you said about shaitan, it is not about what you believe. It is about the environment. I have found this to be true so many times. Your environment is actually much, much stronger than your willpower. Much stronger. So that's why people like, you go next to the fire, like, it's okay. I'm not going to get burnt. Even if you don't get burnt, you're going to feel the heat. It's there. Yeah. So to deny that this is one of the traps of shaitan is shaitan will make you think that you're safe, and boom, that's when shaitan gets you.
SubhanAllah. One repetitive theme that I've been hearing is like the taboo aspect of a lot of these topics, and I feel like because they're considered taboo and because we avoid them, we become in a situation where we don't know how to navigate through them. So how do you find yourself communicating with people so that you can better talk about those taboo topics? Because even right now, when we're having this conversation, it feels like you're trying to avoid these things. So how can we make it so that we can touch on these taboo topics without avoiding them?
So I don't avoid them per se. What I do is, depending on the audience. So let's say, like an 8-year-old boy is listening to this, and I talk about something that, you know what, I would rather an 18-year-old listen to it. That's why I'm kind of mentioning that. But in general, that's the thing. You want to make sure it's the right place to talk about it. And I have so much respect to our imams and people of knowledge. They do amazing things. However, one thing that a lot of them do in a way where they become a haram police, and they kind of drive away the youngsters who want to know a little bit more about Islam. They're like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do that. I'm like, so what can I do? And then parents do the same thing. Like, well, you can't talk to a boy. And then when she's like 25, when are you going to get married? Well, you just told me not to talk to boys. I haven't been talking to boys for the last 10 years. And you expect me to go find somebody? It doesn't connect. So this is why I think we need to talk about these things in a mature way. And there are guidelines that Islam gave us so that we can interact with each other in a safe way. And I was shocked during the process. I learned that 9 out of 10 acts of sexual violence that happen in college campuses, it is not by stranger. We'll talk about stranger danger. It actually happens by people they know and trust. I'm talking about women who are victims of this. Think about that. So, and I'm not even talking about, families and communities, the things that happen, that a lot of communities do. We just try to, hide it under the rug, like, oh, it's not happening. But the more we talk about these things, inshallah, I think the more we're willing to talk about the solutions as well. Because if you don't admit that the problem is there, how are you going to talk about the solution?
Right. I think a lot of, like you said, it goes back to like how women think about relationships with men. What do you wish more women knew about how men operate, how men think?
This is interesting, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that I have not left anything more difficult for men than women. And a lot of women, they will say, oh, well, this is just men being weak. Like they can lower their gaze. They can stop. But you have to understand that this is how Allah made men. So however Allah made men, for you to try to change the entire mankind, male kind, that's not practical. So, and then for us to expect all the women to change certain way, that's not practical either. So how do we interact? So I have these 3 letters that I've learned from Dr. Altaf Hussain from one of the MSA events. And he has these 3 letters. He said PPL. So whenever you're interacting with the opposite gender, just follow these 3 rules. Is it public? Do you have a purpose behind it? And is it limited? And I remember I was interacting with one of the female editors, and we were CCing somebody else on the email. And she's like, wait, why are you CCing somebody else? It's like, we're editing the book. I'm like, well, there's so many sensitive topics here. It's for me so that we leave shaitan out the door completely. So some people feel weird, like, hey, can we just leave the door open for a little bit? Because it's a meeting where it's just me and another woman who's not my family member, maybe in a classroom setting or in a workroom setting. And they feel shy asking that question. You can leave the door open. You can ask that. If there is a see-through window, you can say, hey, if there's a curtain, can we pull the curtain open so other people can see us? Just knowing these simple tips will help you do your, whatever you are into, make whatever mark you want in this world with following the guidelines of Islam so that you can keep yourself safe and those around you safe.
Yeah, I think it goes back to like the courage and the balls, the confidence part of it, right? Yeah. Because I think a lot of people don't do that because of fear of sticking out, fear of being too different. Like, oh my God, like, don't you trust me? Like, what do you mean we need to have a door open?
But it's not about trust though. And it's not about you as an individual. This is the principle. And you can, as a Muslim, if it's a non-Muslim, you can easily say, hey, this is one of the teachings of Islam. This is something that I practice and I feel more comfortable that way. Yeah. Right. So I think practicing that is helpful. And if you have friends who are also, they are aware of these things, it actually becomes easier. And sticking out, honestly, what's wrong with that? It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I remember Seth Godin's idea of a purple cow. Many years ago, I wrote this thing about, it's like, in a field of all gray color cows, you see a purple cow, that cow is going to stand out.
Yeah.
So if you, with your character, with your attitude, with your behavior, if you stand out in the crowd of all these other men who are flirting with women, ogling at them, doing disrespectful remarks and all that, but you being the opposite, you standing out, that's a good thing. So don't shy away from being different. It's okay to be different. Like earlier, I was like, we were trying something else. I'm like, you know what? I kind of like this. I put this on for my son's birthday. Like, hey, you know what? It actually looks nice. I'm like, okay, I like it. So like being open to new possibilities. This is how so many introductions happen. This is how so be open to new things, and it's okay to stand out.
What do you wish more men understood about themselves?
As a man, your identity as a Muslim, if you prioritize that above everything else, I think the rest of it actually falls in place. So you can say, well, I'm a student, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an employee, whatever, I'm a son. But before all of that, if you say I'm a Muslim and all the other decisions I make will actually stem from that, then actually so many things fall in place easily. So I know you might be, under pressure in terms of, depending on how old you are, in terms of getting married, in terms of getting a job, providing, financially and all of that. But at the end of the day, know that this is like a practice. This is, and I want to bring it back to marriage, where this is my realization, a very recent realization, that marriage is the ultimate love test. If you look at life in a way, hey, you know what? I want to live life in a way that I am proud of that life, and Allah will be happy with me. If you just have that, inshallah, you will make so many decisions that you will not regret later.
Yeah, I think regret is such a central theme behind why so many people make so many decisions, why someone might venture into an experience or venture into something that might not be good for them, like the FOMO, fear of missing out. What do you do in a situation where you feel like, okay, you're ready to approach marriage, you're in good standings with your family? What's the best thing to kind of check in terms of your internal checklist or your internal checkbook, and saying, all right, my balance is right in terms of my character, my deen. I'm ready to find someone that has compatibility with me. Yeah.
So going back to the basics, Marvel needs DC Comics, right? It's just like it's a DC com. So you have deen, you have character, and you have compatibility.
How did you come up with that, by the way? That was one of the central things in your book.
I was just playing around with the idea. How can I put those things in a way that it'll be easy? So I'm a fan of both, by the way. I'm not like a Marvel versus DC Comics guy. I enjoy both of those characters. So it's DC Com, really. If you have those, now the thing is, people understand deen and character to be somehow they mesh them together and say, oh, this guy has deen, oh, he must also have good character. And unfortunately, I wish that was the case, but that is not the case. So you really have to look for character in addition to deen. And then compatibility is a big deal. A lot of people don't understand that. They think, oh, it means being the same, liking the same tea. Like, I could love green tea, my wife could love coffee. Nothing to do with it. That is not what makes us compatible in marriage. So I talk about 8 slices of compatibility, and you don't need someone to be 100% compatible. It's the overall compatibility you're looking for. A lot of the fights married couples have after marriage, if you just talk about those 8 slices one at a time, hey, let's spend maybe a session, maybe one meeting, maybe half an hour, and let's talk about our emotional compatibility. Just as an example. All right. So how do we express anger, right? What is our personality like? And most importantly, how do we resolve conflicts? Just knowing that, and then instead of asking yes or no question, hey, do you get angry often? Yes, no. No. It's like, what do you do when you get angry? How do you express your anger? So you might give them a crisis situation. Just here's a hypothetical situation. How would you resolve this? So when you talk about these things, and then you talk about finances, you talk about intimacy, you talk about family, you talk about your upbringing, you talk about future, you talk about your goals, you talk about practically who's going to do what. When you talk about all of that, then things become so much easier. So going back to your question, how do you know? If you can say, okay, alhamdulillah, I'm doing my best in terms of my deen. Okay, I'm doing my best in terms of my character. Now, compatibility wise, you say, well, can I take care of it? Can I at least support my wife? Or at the least while I'm finishing my education or my degree or establishing my career, maybe my parents will be able to help, but I have a goal. And if she's on board and her parents are on board, then absolutely, I think you are ready.
What are the best questions to ask someone to understand compatibility? I think there's a lot of resources out there.
Yeah.
A lot of 70, 80 question books. In your opinion, what's a great first meeting list of questions that you can present or bring and that helps you understand right off the bat, this might be somebody I want to spend the rest of forever with?
Oh man, just a couple of days ago, we spent 3 hours on this. My two co-hosts, and this is it. Okay, so 2 questions. So you take the 8 slices, right? And you go to each one and you ask, so what are your deal breakers in that part of your life? Meaning, if a guy has everything else, he's 6 feet tall, 6-pack abs, he has a 6-figure income, but if he has this one thing, forget about it. That's a deal breaker. Right? Not a red flag, not something you don't like, actual deal breaker. So you say, all right, you know what? When it comes to emotional compatibility, what's your deal breaker? What are your deal breakers? Tell me more and say why. That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, what are your deal makers? What are things that are important to you? Things that you really, really want when it comes to emotional compatibility. And then you repeat those same 2 questions for each slices of the compatibility. This way, you don't have to memorize 80, 100, 200 questions that people ask. So it is one of the simplest way to, you can do this, of course, in one setting, but I don't recommend that. I actually recommend the 8 slices. You take maybe 2 slices at a time and have at least a couple of sessions. Because sometimes people rush and they're like, oh, just to get rid of that awkwardness, break the ice, just to get into that deep conversation, it might take you a whole session, an hour or so, right? And even people who they date for a while, they know each other for a while. Even them, they don't go into these deep topics. You don't need to spend 6 years or 6 months to get to know someone deeply. In 6 minutes might be too fast, but in 60 minutes, absolutely. You can have a very clear, you can really open up the window to their soul and see what they prioritize, what are they afraid of, what do they like, what do they don't like about those things. Think about it. When they have that conversation, after an hour or 2, you can okay, I kind of like this guy. I like what he stands for. Or you'd be like, nah, it just rubs me the wrong way. Just something about it, right? Of course, and if you like it, the next step will be you got to vet and verify the guy. That's when you get your marriage team involved. That's your parents, your siblings, your friends. You get them to go look at the guy. I'm talking from the woman's perspective, but of course you do the same thing as a guy as well, right? So digital footprint. Criminal background check, civil background check, financial background check, social background check. And when I talk about this, people are like, what criminal back? I'm like, would you not like to know if the guy has an arrest warrant somewhere? Would you tell me if you want to know that now or 20 years from now? Do you want to know if the guy is already secretly married somewhere? Civil background check will do that. Mm-hmm. Social background check includes social media. Go and talk. The guy says he prays 5 times a day, goes to Fajr. Well, talk to the imam and ask, does he show up regularly? People he dealt with in money, business partners or colleagues or coworkers, his friends, his family members, ask that. A lot of people, they just 2 of them and talk and everything is good. And then no vetting and verifying. I am not saying that all guys are liars, but I'm telling you, there are a lot of people, because they want to impress the woman, they will exaggerate, they will embellish, they will add stuff. They're and they don't want to show their real self. And then after marriage, they show their real self. How come you didn't say any of this before marriage?
Well, how do you know if someone's being their real selves before you get married to them?
That's where, so you prod and poke the guy from multiple angles and multiple settings. So this is why, let's say you're talking to the guy 4 times. Each time, choose a different place to talk to. Maybe one time with your brother or somebody else, go to his house. See how his environment is. If you can take a quick peek in his room, you'll know, how messy or how clean it is. One of our co-hosts, she's saying I'm okay, but please, if you smell, don't even come near me. I'm like, bro, so true. I know quite a lot of guys are so I have socks on. I'm like, you know what? How much does a new sock cost you, bro? Just get it. simple things, it will drive women crazy. Like, so in terms of hygiene, in terms of the basic, you want to be presentable, right? But I'm not just talking about looking nice outwardly and inside being hollow and shallow. No, like good inside and outside. So how do you know if a guy is lying or not? Is that you test him in many different situations, and you talk to other people. You get third party involved. So your marriage team, well, they're biased for you. And then his marriage team, well, they're going to be biased towards him. So fine, you take it with a grain of salt and you confirm, but look for unbiased, objective sources to listen to. How was he? Does he get angry usually? And then you look at it, well, how does he treat his mother? How does he treat his sister? It's a very good indication as how he might treat you afterwards. So there are so many of these things that we skip, and then we're like, oh man, I wish I knew this before marriage. But these are clues that you got to be a good detective. You got to figure out. These are clues every guy shows. I'm telling you, you could be an expert at this. You cannot hide all of your red flags. If you know how to ask these questions, there is no way, especially in multiple settings and doing all this vetting and verification, there is no way a guy could hide all of his red flags.
I mean, we've been talking a lot about the factual aspects that come into play with individuals. But we live in a world of vibes, right? So how do we
chemistry, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate through those internal kind of like struggles that individuals might have going into this sort of relationship and wanting to feel like you click with that person prior to getting married? Because some people, they want the shoe to fit right then and there, perfectly.
Yeah.
But shoes are something that you might need to break into. So how do you navigate through that?
Dr. Helen Fisher, Rutgers University, not too far from here, a couple of decades ago, she actually did something incredible. She defined love with 3 things. She said love is lust, attraction, and then attachment. To me, this was eye-opening. So that attraction factor, I think, is extremely important. I've met quite a few people. They're like, oh, Deen is number 1 priority. It doesn't matter how she looks. Like, are you sure about that? Like, think about it. You're going to wake up next to her every single day. You're going to see her face every day. Like, it doesn't matter how she looks like. That is not what Islam teaches. Rasulullah actually said, go and look at her so that attraction will be built. So having that minimum level of attraction is a must. Some people, overlook that. They think, oh, yes, deen is important, but if you're not attracted to that person at all, so I say very clearly, if you find that person hideous, do not marry that person. Just plain and simple, okay? But if there is some level of attraction, sure, you might not be, head over heels right off the bat. That's okay. I know quite a lot of couples who started that way. They're like, at the beginning, they didn't even like each other. But when they got to know each other, I'm like, oh my God. Like, behind the surface, it's a different person. So don't give that too much weight, because I know it's like, like the Botox culture with like the look is everything. The Insta culture is like, oh no, the look is number 1. Well, sure. You can take a nice photo for like 5 seconds, but for the 50 hours in the week, like rest of the time, what are you going to do? You're living with a real person. So make sure you're attracted to the real person as well. So I'm not saying, so this is the important, this is the balance. So if you have to, this is not something that I would say you need to compromise on. Inshallah, that mutual attraction. Of course, you don't have to necessarily ask each other. You will know that vibe, that click, that chemistry will be there. I say, either you'll feel it or like, oh, it's not there. So that's why if everything else is good, so the guy doesn't have any of your deal breakers, excellent. The guy has most of your deal makers, excellent. Give him a chance. Go to a second. Maybe that attraction might build slowly. So some people, the idea of, I'm going to fall in love first and then get married.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I have kind of an interesting question.
Yeah.
How do guys approach Riz in a respectful way?
Risk or Riz?
Riz, like chemistry. Let's say like you want to like seem like a respectful guy that can show or can be attractive to the other person.
Yeah.
But you want to be respectful. You want to be Islamic about it. Right?
So how do you flirt?
How do you flirt
in
a respectful way?
How to flirt? Okay, in a respectful way. That's an excellent question. So it's all about the environment. So it's after sunset, it's dark and she's rushing, and then from the back you try to don't do weird stuff like that. That's not flirting. That's downright being a predator and perv. So I'm telling you that because a lot of the guys, because of whatever they watch, because whatever they grew up with, they're like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to interact with a woman. So they cross the line. They don't know the difference between respect and disrespect. So that's the first thing. So we're not talking about that. But to be chivalrous, to like, idea of, oh, you're opening the door for her, pulling out the chair for her, I think those are something that Islam actually is okay with. It's something that as long as, let's say, you're together with her parents and everybody's together, take that lead, take that role. So if you're willing to pay for the whole thing, pay the bill, right? Even if she makes more money than you, that's okay. It's like, you be yourself, be a leader, inshallah, respectfully, and she'll respect that. And the other side of it is, do not be a yes man. And I think I said it earlier, like, don't be a yes man. If you stand for something, you really like something, do not change that about you just to appease her, just to, oh, you know what, I want to make my wife happy, that's why I'm not going to do that. Trust me, the wives, they test their husbands without even knowing that they're actually doing it. They're like, I'm going to keep on testing him, see if he loves me. I'm going to keep on testing him, see if he stands on his words. Like, and we don't even realize it. And what we do, like, oh man, she asked me so many times, it's okay, just to make her happy, like, I'm going to do that. So it's very interesting. I think if you are respectful and if you're kind, inshallah, you will be able to deal with any setting, and talk to her respectfully, of course, and the worst thing to do is ask any type of, questions that might cross the line. A lot of the guys, they like, especially online, they would ask about past sexual experiences or, things like that. Those are big red flags. Those are no-nos. Like, so don't cross those boundaries. But within that boundary, if you are a leader, if you are kind, and if you're respectful, just be yourself. When a woman sees, you know what, this guy stands for something, he knows what he wants, he knows what he likes, that's attractive. So you don't necessarily, so this is a flirting not in that sense, but it's showing up for what you stand for from afar. I know so many people, they kind of fall in love with someone from far. They never spoken a single word to each other, because they see in action, like, oh my God. And then they get to know each other. They find somebody else. Hey, is he available? Is he single? And the whole process starts. So don't be afraid to show up, with your authentic self.
Yeah, you're almost saying, like, you got to flirt with your actions, not with your words.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how people might take the word flirting here, but absolutely. Yeah. Show up, fully authentic. Don't be a fake version of yourself just to please other people.
So one thing you mentioned, you actually like touch upon a lot in your book is these really nice little images that kind of depict different aspects. And I think one of them that's very key is, like, although the parts that are before the marriage are very pivotal, very important, very climactic, it's a very small part of the entire marriage as a whole. So one of the goals of this initiative is to divorce-proof the Muslim Ummah. So how do you feel like is the number one issue that Muslim couples deal with today?
The biggest issue is when they're ready, like, oh, I think I'm ready, or my parents are telling me about it, I'm going to go start looking for someone. I think that's jumping the gun, and that's step 6, right? So what I say, you know what? Prepare yourself first. This is why I actually said this is for a 20-year-old single Muslim woman. Like, why 20? Well, that's an excellent age to start learning about it, because now you have options. If you want, whatever way you want to go to, no problem. So I think we're not prepared. So think about how many years we spend for, our education, how many internship, how many hours of training and learning we do for our job, to start up a business. But compare that with, like, how many hours do we spend to actually learn about marriage, how to be a good husband, how to be a good wife, right? So I think that's where, this is where I love the analogy of, business and marriage, where, well, in a business, you're looking for a co-founder, right? Like, oh, marriage is very similar. You're also looking for a co-founder to co-found a family together. It's a startup. But what about all that preparation? So do you guys know how much a typical wedding costs in the US?
Are we talking about Desi wedding?
Or in general, average, like just average.
Ooh, it's probably going to be
I know
wide spectrum. Yeah, I know.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
It is. Yeah. So the average is $30,000.
I was going to say 30. Yeah.
Think about it. So, and I asked quite a lot of people, I'm like, okay, you have $30,000, and like, okay, my parents and me, like, saving up. Okay, excellent. Now, how much did you budget for the actual marriage? Like, wait, what do you mean? No, like the actual marriage, after that day, like that one day of wedding. Okay, after that, how much is your budget for that? They're still confused. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, like, people like get married and assume their life is over.
That's
like,
it.
They did everything they were supposed to in life. Yeah. So
to me, it's like, I imagine a house, and I'm like, you know what? That front door that you enter the house from, like, that front door is the wedding day.
Oh, subhanAllah.
And then the back door, imagine there's like a back porch and like the back door, that's the divorce.
Oh, wow.
And the entire house is the marriage. So what I'm inviting you to do is make the front door as lavish as you want, not a problem, according to your financial capacity. But don't be dumb enough to go to debt for a wedding day. I think that is one of the dumbest financial decisions youngsters do, and they start off marriage in a hole, financial hole. So I strongly disagree, advise against that. And there are ways to have a big wedding without, breaking your banks, right? So you go in and then you shut the back door open with steel that is reinforced. That's it. It cannot be open anymore. And now you make sure your house internally, everything is working. So I would recommend, if you're going to spend $30,000 on wedding, maybe have budget $3,000, $5,000 for that preparation. Actually prepare and learn the skills. How do you resolve conflicts? If you go back to your childhood, the things that still hurt you, you think they don't matter? Wait till you have your first fight with your spouse. Then you'll see how much that thing matters. Yeah. Take care of yourself. Take care of your heart. Start with your heart. So this is why I say the earlier you start, the better off you'll be. Yeah. I know I've shared some of these things with people and they're like, man, I wish I knew this 20 years ago. I'm like, same here. Like I wish so many of these things I knew earlier, but alhamdulillah, we all have our journey.
Alhamdulillah. I think what's so interesting about your book that you mentioned for the first time, and I haven't heard somewhere before, is you mentioned as guys and as women too, you got to overcome your traumas before you think about marriage. That's one of the main things. Yeah. Why did you want to include that in your book?
So right now I'm working from home, taking care of my kids, right? And I look back and I say, why am I making these decisions right now? And it goes back to my childhood. So my dad used to live abroad. Like he used to work for a couple of years and then come back for a couple of weeks. And then one of those visits, I remember I did something he didn't like. And I was beaten up really badly. And I remember to this day, I forgot everything else that he did, but I remember that. So the fact that he wasn't physically with us most of the time, and that one day kind of left that hole in my heart. So you might okay, that little boy grew up, but that thirst, that hunger for love is still there. So I know so many people they are, maybe children of divorce, maybe or single parent, they go through, maybe they have both of their parents, but they're checked out. They're on their screen and their phone and they're not giving, so they're not growing up with what they need. So that's why what we went through in childhood and in our teenage years has huge impact in the type of person we're going to select as spouse and also what kind of relationship we're going to have with them. And the best way to deal with all of that is before you get married. Sure, you can work on them afterwards, inshallah, but it's much more difficult. It's like an uphill battle. So I think, it is something like a taboo topic, alhamdulillah, I think Muslim community as in general, overall, mashallah, we're more aware about mental health and these topics are not as much of a taboo anymore. So I'm very happy about that. But at the same time, I know a lot of sisters in their 40s and 50s, why didn't you tell your daughter about any of this stuff? And they're like, oh, I don't want my daughter to know about some of the mistakes that I made in the past. I don't want her to lose respect for me and all that. And this is all connected. So taking care of your heart is probably one of the most important things you could do, not just for marriage, just for the happiness and enjoyment for the rest of your life.
Yeah, one of the key things I think in the book that you mentioned is that, when it comes to finding a co-founder, you're probably not going to get it on your first try. The first person you talk to and with the approach for marriage, for you personally, it took a long time. And that's why you should start so early so that, once you finally do, if Allah has written it for you at a specific age, you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
One of the most important skills to facilitate this is to be able to end a relationship if you don't see marriage at the end of it, or if you don't see a healthy way for it to become, a successful, right?
Yeah.
Preventing it from becoming emotionally scarring. Why was that one of the most important skills for you to include in the book? And you talk about several different ways to facilitate ending relationships when it's not good for you.
I know so many stories where that type of relationship where emotionally entangled, but it's not going anywhere. Type of relationship, we call it situationship, right? Yeah. Sometimes you're stuck, you don't want to put a label on it. We don't know where we're heading. And they're stuck in that for 5 years. And because, I don't want to make her so the woman will say, well, I don't want to make him feel bad. So do you see, this is, so now the issue is you're stuck with Mr. Wrong for 5 years. What do you think is going to happen to all the Mr. Potential that are walking, past you? You're not going to see any of them because you're stuck with that one Mr. Wrong or Mr. Toxic or Mr. whoever it is. So this is why I didn't even start with the idea of Mr. Right. That's why literally it says how not to fall in love with Mr. Wrong. Wow. I say, if you get one thing, like just stay away from Mr. Wrong. Do not give your heart willy-nilly to the first, guy who gives you some type of admiration and attention. Because if you can stay away from Mr. Wrong, now you actually have room in your heart for Mr. Right to show up. Or maybe inshallah, when you are ready, you can go and find your Mr. Right. So this is that's why it is such a critical skill. If you're already entangled up in a romantic relationship where it's maybe so, there are specific questions asked to figure out, should I continue this to marriage or should I just break it off? And you don't have to be stuck in that maybe for too long.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you mentioned in the book the power of the cleaver or the knife, right?
Yeah.
How sometimes you do have to be able to just cut it off.
Yeah.
What's the most successful way that you've seen in life and through couples when it comes to like cutting things off, right?
Having someone else to do it with is very helpful. So if you're a woman and you want to do it, enroll one of your friends and literally tell her, hey, you know what? I need you to hold me accountable, right? Next time I grumble and mumble and complain about it, just slap me out of it. Because trust me, that's going to happen. You are going to regret, oh man, did I let go of a good guy? Like you've been stuck with that guy for 5 years in a toxic relationship. That's totally normal. And I am not just minimizing it. It is a difficult thing to do, right? So at the same time, ask yourself, well, 10 years from now, will I be happy that I'm making this decision now? So sometimes looking ahead is, it's not literal time travel, but I love the idea of time travel. I'm a big Doctor Who fan, like time travel, man. Like sometimes you might want to time travel, look back, ask 10, 20 years from now, that future version of me, looking back, will that person be happy that I'm making this decision now?
Oh, wow.
That's an excellent way to any decision in life, you say. So am I going to regret this decision? Well, why don't you go and think about it? 20 years from now, will I be proud of me for making this decision now at this moment? If it's yes, go for it.
Yeah. You have like a really ambitious goal of divorce-proofing Muslim marriages, right? It's, if you look at the statistics today, it's about 1 in every 2 marriages fail. And Muslims surprisingly are on track to kind of match that number in terms of, Muslim and non-Muslim. What gives you hope about Muslims specifically that you think will be able to beat the statistics?
Yeah, I have good news for you. All right, so let me ask you this. How many businesses, let's say out of 10, how many businesses fail within the first couple of years?
6.
Yeah, 6 to 8. It's like, so I've heard numbers of up to 80%.
80%.
So let's say there are 10 businesses. Within the first couple of years, 8 of them will be gone.
Wow.
And then of course, if you let them go for another 5 to 10 years, out the 2 that are left, more of them will be gone. So the failure rate of businesses, startups, are 80%. So the good news is marriages are more successful than businesses. But do you ever hear an entrepreneur, someone saying, oh, you're starting this business? Stop, that's a bad idea because 80% of businesses fail. Did you ever hear anyone say that? I have never heard that in my whole life. But when it comes to marriage, oh no, 1 out of 2 marriages fail. Duh. I am actually hopeful that marriages beat businesses when it comes to success rate. Now, if we can actually help youngsters prepare and let them know how to stay away from Mr. Wrong, how to choose Mr. Right, I believe we can make a dent on that divorce rate. And sometimes people look at the number, they're like, oh, I'm going to be one of the 2. Well, why can't you be the 50% who actually make it happen? Why can't you be the 10% that have an amazing, successful marriage? Aim for that. So I know like I am a fan of statistics. There are like so many references, I'm into research, but I'm like, it's your life. You and his spouse, like, just don't worry about all that. Yes, it's true. Knowing that is helpful, but don't automatically assume just because they are getting divorced that you'll get a divorce as well, right? So I believe that it is very possible. And I'm telling you, I have come at the brink of divorce multiple times. And I come back from that. And I share that, that lifelong commitment to be able to come back over and over. Those are skills, micro skills that no one teaches us. Not in an MBA program, not our parents, no one teaches those skills. So that I've been, subhanAllah, this is why I think this is crucial. You've got to learn these skills now. So that inshallah, when you find your person, you will be able to take it to Jannah all the way. Bi-idhnillah.
Navigating through all these big topics that we've talked about, one of the key buzzwords that come into mind is communication.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's one of the main skills you need to have
Yeah.
in order to navigate through these. What even with any relationship, whether it's marriage, whether it's friendship, whether it's anything. So my question to you is, despite knowing that,
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure everyone knows that, why are we so bad at it?
I think we're bad at it because we don't actually practice it. We think we know it. Oh, I'm going to communicate. And then think, oh, I'm going to talk. I'm going to tell somebody. But communication is not just about talking. So it's about listening, understanding. So Stephen Covey, he has a saying, first seek to understand before you want to be understood. So we do not practice these skills, actually. So let's say I get angry, and if I get angry at my wife and like, oh my God, you're dumb and you're stupid, and we go into that rage, and the way we express it, like, oh, it's okay, I'm just expressing my anger. But really though, I am belittling her, I am disrespecting her, I'm making her feel small. What's gonna happen to that? So I need to have the skill of expressing my anger in a way that actually is productive. Like, hey, I feel angry when this happens because this is what I believe. Next time, can we please, like what I just did A, B, C, D. Literally, I feel we're not taught these skills. So I think communications is not just one, it's a lot of tiny micro skills added together. So if we can learn these, inshallah, little by little, drip by drip, these skills will make you a man, a woman. They're like, wow, where did he come from? I'm telling you, like some of these people, when they show up, they're like, the woman, they're like, what planet are you from? Because you are so different than all these, men that I see. Subhanallah. So, but I think these are learnable skills. I think divorce proofing is a learnable skill. Communication is a learnable skill. People use the word communication as like a vague term. I'm like, what do you mean by communication? It depends on the situation. And the biggest things you can master right now is how to de-escalate a situation, how to resolve a conflict, how to manage a crisis. You are good in that. Oh man, you can be the pillar in everybody's running around like a headless chicken. You're like, hey, calm, cool, and collected, inshallah. And that's the type of spouse, that's the type of a husband and woman would be proud to have.
SubhanAllah. I mean, you've been in the trenches with couples about some of the hardest things that they'll deal with. A lot of times people can have a lot of success in life and have struggle in their marriage. What's one story that stuck out to you as a story where faith was something that saved a marriage? And do you think that specifically when it comes to marriages that are struggling, that faith is the key to saving it? Or is it working on some of those softer skills like you were talking about, communication, de-escalation?
I think it's both. So I'll tell you a story that I heard from one of my teachers. And this is a story in the past before internet. So this Egyptian guy, he went to one of the Gulf countries to study, to get a better job, to make an income. And after a while, he phoned back. Back then, this is like many, many decades ago. So he said, Dad, I'm ready. I think I'm ready for marriage. Can you help me find someone? So mashallah, the dad, he understood that the dad did his due diligence and found a wife for him. And then they got married over the phone. By the way, I do not recommend that. Okay, so, and then, so he is at the airport. The family came, the wife came to receive him at the airport. And she's wearing a niqab, right? The only thing you can see are her eyes. So he saw her and then, mashallah, but just the eyes, didn't know how she looks like even. So they talked salam and then they went back. And at home, the first time they're talking in privacy, she took off her niqab and he looked at her and he was disappointed. But he has a good heart. He didn't say anything, but the wife saw his reaction. The wife knew. So they talked a little bit, they chit-chatted, and then, he was jet-lagged. So, after a while they went to sleep. And the wife, in the middle of the night, she woke up, she went to the bathroom and made wudu, and she came back and she is like, hey, can you wake up for a little bit? And he's still very tired and, sleepy. Like, hey, I'm very sleepy. He said, I know. Can you please wake up? And he's awake on the bed. She said, I know you are not happy with how I look. I know you're disappointed with my looks. but I just have one request. Ever since I was a little girl, I heard of this hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, may Allah have a mercy on the woman who wakes up in the middle of the night and she prays extra prayer and she sprays a little bit of water on her husband's face. So he also wakes up and prays, and it goes both ways. And she said, ever since I was a little girl, I repeated that hadith so many times that became my love story. I wanted to practice that hadith the day I get married. I know you are not happy with how I look. Can you please just wake up and lead me into rak'ah of prayer? So that the husband understood he is a good man. He made wudu and he went and he prayed. He was in the front, she was in the back. He prayed 2 rak'ah. And then the husband, after saying assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to the left, he looked back and he saw her. And he said, I thought she was the most beautiful woman on earth. And this couple went to have an amazing marriage, many children, they memorized the Quran, leaders of the community. This is a real story. Deen, if you genuinely, truly go to Allah, Allah will put that love and mercy in your hearts. So this is why this culture of Insta culture, looks and all of that, people are bamboozled by the look and then they get disappointed afterwards. I'm like, you married a shell. You didn't check what's inside. So Deen has saved them. Going close to Allah has saved them. So I think it is absolutely essential. At the same time, don't use that as a crutch to overlook everything else. You've got to have those skills. You've got to have those skills to make a marriage successful, inshallah.
SubhanAllah, what a beautiful story, honestly. Like, it was giving me goosebumps hearing it.
I'm feeling emotional.
Man, every time I think of that story, I'm like, wow. This story and the story I mentioned at the beginning of, the true love story, like two of my favorite stories of all time.
SubhanAllah. I mean, I just want to touch on one more issue so it feels like we're going in a linear aspect. We've talked about before marriage, we've talked about the beginning aspects of marriage, we've talked about the middle aspects of marriage. What do you recommend for couples who have been married for a while that feel like they're stuck in their marriage, that, especially during COVID times, you guys are seeing each other so often, sometimes my wife is just there like, oh, you work from home, and she's just like, she's stuck at home and she's like, we don't know what to do. Like,
right.
Yes. So what's your recommendation for those situations where it feels like a kind of like a lull?
Okay. So you ready for this? I have 2 recommendations. Okay. So number 1, whatever AI you use, I use Claude a lot, ChatGPT, whatever comes in the future. So this is a simple prompt. You just ask this question. I want you to be a marriage expert who is trained in the Gottman method. So John Gottman, he and his wife, they've been researching this for 4 decades plus, based on science, based on research, right? So Gottman method, just remember that. And here's our situation. I'm in a lull and we're in a fight. My wife and I said this and all that. Literally describe the situation. Say, act as an advisor, as a therapist, as a counselor, and guide us as to what question to ask and what are the next steps. You will be amazed with the responses you get. But you got to give those clues, because Gottman method, that is part of divorce proofing your marriage. And it literally brings everything into place. And then just follow that prompt. And you have to, that's where the guts come in. You have to have the guts. If you made a mistake, say, honey, I made up. I screwed up. Please forgive me. Can we talk about, let's have it. Like, you've got to own up to that. So knowing that, having the skill, for men, saying I'm sorry is a micro skill. Because a lot of men, our ego and our pride is so high. I'm like, there's no way I'm admitting my mistake. Like, no, say I'm sorry. And then to say, to say I love you verbally, actually express it. Like, now you have AI, like technology. You can say I love you every week in a different language. Surprise her. It doesn't take long. Put it on your calendar, literally put a notification every week at this time, put a calendar. If you're not going on a date night every week, have a date night. And people say dating is haram. I'm like, I disagree. I think for a couple, they need to go on a date every week, if they cannot, at least every other week in a month on a regular basis. And they need to talk about, they literally have to say, okay, how did I do last, like, and actually talk about real stuff. And by dating, I'm not talking about a screen. You watch a movie together, that is not a date night. I'm talking about in terms of divorce proofing your future marriage, where you actually air out and you listen. You know what, for the next 10 minutes, just tell me what's on your mind. I'm not going to say anything. And at the end, just say, I hear you. And then you take turn, put a timer. Just to be open like that, to be able to, you know what? I am so mad at you, man. You're driving me crazy. But I still love you. To be able to hold both of these at the same time, that's where marriage is made of. So that's the first thing, AI. Does that make sense? You don't need to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars. You don't need to share any of this stuff with anybody. And then, of course, if you really want to take it to the next level with a professional, I highly recommend go to psychologytoday.com. Find someone who is trained in Gottman method. Find a Muslim man or woman. There are a lot of Muslim counselors and therapists nowadays. Find someone in his local area. If you can't find someone locally, virtually is just fine. Talk to them. It is worth every penny. It is worth every penny. So if you are obese and you're unhealthy, you have a chronic illness, for you to expect it to get better automatically would be delusional, right? You would agree with that, right? So same thing. I can't remember. Well, what do you guys think? Do you guys know if someone has diabetes, for example, you think that's it forever, right? They're doomed?
No.
They always have to take insulin?
No.
I grew up with that. I grew up with the idea. You have diabetes, that's it. They've gotten you as a customer for the rest of your life. And then now I'm like, wait a second. Dr. Michael Greger, he's like, no, you can arrest it. They can literally like catch it. You can actually reverse it. Interesting. But when I talk about divorce, I'm like, wait, you could divorce proof. That's a weird idea. How is that even possible? I am telling you another D word, diabetes. It is possible to reverse it. So it is possible to divorce proof a marriage, but you've got to start before you get married. Because once you're stuck with the wrong person, and then especially when children come in, it's very difficult at that point. It is not impossible, but the battle is much more difficult. So I hope that answers your question. The two things you don't like AI. So some people are like, oh, I'm afraid of AI. I'm like, forget about all of that. Like just use AI to make your marriage amazing. Like every night, hey, last date night, we talked about this date night. What do we want to talk about?
Amazing.
There's also so John Gottman, he has a book called, I think, 8 Dates, something like that, 8 Dates, literally on, different conversations that you want to have. These are skills that I think we need to learn as if, we're going through an MBA or like a bachelor's program. We have to know this stuff.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing how, it's great that ChatGPT or AI is going to take your job, but at least it's going to give you a healthy marriage.
Oh, by the way, can I mention something on that note? So people some people say, oh, I'm counseling. So I'm actually not a professional licensed counselor. As my previous role as imams and community leaders, people would come unofficially, I would give them advice and things like that. So I have defined my role as a pre-marriage educator because there is a shortage of that. Because I know a lot of people, they work with everyone, married and single and men and women and parents. I'm like, you know what? So I have, instead of going like 1 inch deep and then 1 mile wide, I am choosing to go like, you know what? I'm going to go 1 inch wide and 1 mile deep.
Yeah.
So I have chosen singles, focus on them because that's it. That's what the next generation is made of. So if I focus, inshallah, for the next 20, 30 years of my life on this, hopefully we will be able to make a difference.
Inshallah. So for all the people listening on who are single and are listening to this podcast, what can they do today, right after listening to this podcast, to be on the road to a divorce-proof marriage?
I would say start with a self-assessment. Ask yourself these questions honestly. Like, do I want a lifelong commitment with someone? If the answer is yes, like now or later, start your preparation. I think prepare. If you're in college right now, it is the best time to prepare. I just had a conversation with a 16-year-old who lives in Buffalo in my community, and he was talking to me about it, and he has his eye on someone, and he likes her. And he's like, you know what? I'm getting ready. I'm saving up. I'm planning on this. I'm like, excellent. What are your plans? And I'm encouraging him. He's 16, but he is thinking of getting married. He said, you know what? As soon as I'm 18, I'm gonna get married. So I said, so I want to help with people who want to get married early. I want to make sure that they are ready, because sometimes getting married early could be a mistake, but sometimes getting married early could be the right decision for the right person who is mature enough and who is responsible enough and who is willing to grow together with their partner. So I hope that inshallah you ask yourself honestly, if you don't want a lifelong commitment like that, and if that scares you, like, just the idea is just really like, I'm scared to death just of that idea because I've seen so many bad examples of marriages, then that would be another area to look at. You're scared, you have two options. You can shy away from it, just pretend it doesn't exist, or you can look at it and say, what's the worst that's going to happen? And what can I do to prevent it? This is literally why, what's the worst that can happen? Oh, we're going to end up divorced. Like literally divorce proof. Like just do not shy away from it.
Why do you think people should be afraid of a world where divorce is so common?
I am actually scared for the children of divorce more than the couples. And sometimes I was talking to a couple of youngsters, young women, and said, you may think, oh, I'm doing this for you. Would you believe me if I tell you that I'm actually doing this for your future children? Because if they see you and your husband in a marriage, or maybe you disagree, but you know how to make up quickly, you know how to show them that example, imagine what's going to happen. Like strong marriages will make strong families, and strong families will make strong communities. And strong communities will then be able to help raise leaders and scholars of the next generation. There is no other way. There is no other way. So what an amazing gift to be able to give to your future children. Hey, before I met your dad, you know how I met my mother, how I met my father, there's a TV show like before I met your dad, I was getting ready. Like, subhanAllah, like having a heart that is ready is one of the biggest gifts you can give to your future spouse.
Yeah,
I was waiting for you. I was working on myself, and I'm ready for you.
Talk about making the world a better place. It's so important how, in our own little ways, the success of the future is so dependent on the decisions that we make today. It energizes me, honestly. It makes me feel really excited about the future, because now we're armed with people like you who bring about the facts. It's like, all right, this is the playbook, right? This is how you avoid mistakes and bring about a really strong foundation. What are you most proud of when it comes to the book that you've written? And what do you hope is the main takeaway from it, if you had to sum it up?
Okay. Do you want me to go just in terms of aesthetic? I've gotten so many people ask me this question. Like, why is the title of the book not on the cover?
I thought the same thing. So I got the book and then I flipped it over. I was like, wait, is he trying to go like a Quran style? Like maybe, the
no,
left,
it's not from the,
like right to left?
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, this is the front.
Yeah. So I'm actually quite proud of that. I have so many people opposing me on that. Like, this is the idea of a purple cow standing out, right? So in business, this is like a common thing. If you don't stand out, you're dead. Like if people cannot differentiate between you and another choice, how do you stand out? So alhamdulillah, I am quite proud of the overall quality and the attention and the research that went behind this book. SubhanAllah, I'm very thankful to people who have shared their story, especially my wife. And it's not easy to be willing to do that, to be willing to say, hey, you know what? Like, oh my God, like people are going to know about some of these mistakes, some of the stuff that I've done. I talk about some of the dumb stuff that I did. Like so this is the thing. Don't assume that, oh, you have to be a perfect person. I'm not a perfect person. But at the same time, we also want to raise our standard a little bit, inshallah. So I'm very happy that alhamdulillah, this book has been received so well. And when 20-year-old's telling me, well, oh my God, I thought you're reading my mind. Like I just had that question and you literally answered that next. I'm like, alhamdulillah, that makes me so happy to hear. So it is a book that it took me 5 years to write, but it's been like 20 years in the making. And alhamdulillah that Allah blessed me to, if I die just with this book out in the world, alhamdulillah, I'm happy. Alhamdulillah. But of course there's 3 more books that I have planned in the marriage MBA series. So inshallah.
No, we can't thank you enough for providing the Muslim Made community a bundle specific for us that we're going to be putting a link to. And we're so excited for a world where Muslims are going to be armed and prepared to have, inshallah, a divorce-proof marriage. I forget where I read it or where I saw it, but it said somewhere that the fabric of society begins to degrade once the family degrades, right? And that's why divorce matters, and that's why we should be fearful of it, and that if we have control over it, that it's our imperative to contribute to the goodness in the world through having a good family. So alhamdulillah, I can't thank you enough for being a part of this mission that we've created, which is to inspire, empower, and bring about some practical advice for the Muslims today. How do you feel? Did you have as much fun as we did?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for this. You guys asked some really good questions, mashallah.
I mean, I have one more.
Sure.
So one thing that I was sitting here thinking about is, we read these books, 2 men, and the book is catered towards 20-year-old single women. I want to hear your take on it because I feel a certain way about it. Do you see benefit in a man reading this to get a better idea of how women are looking for a man?
What would you recommend? You guys have read most of the book. What would you
so it's so interesting. I gained so much from it because I don't feel like your advice is selectively just for women.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I also really like picking it up because I have people in mind within my own family that I want to gift it to.
Mm-hmm.
And I also believe that within society, men will match what women expect of them.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to live in a better society, that begins with women improving their standards. Everyone kind of talks today like, oh, like, you know, women say like, you got to like level up your standards, or you got to have high expectations. I think there's a toxic level of that, but I also think there's a really healthy level of that. I know today that for a lot of women, that's like 100K mahar, right? But I think there's a lot of other ways that you can expect a man to be better. And through that, we will see society become better. Yeah. If women only want to engage themselves with people who are really emotionally intelligent or really good when it comes to problem like de-escalation, then men will naturally, over time, become accustomed to doing that. Because I think as men, we want the approval of women. I think we want to be seen as attractive. And attracted to who? Not to other men, but to women. And if attraction comes in the form of not visuals, if it comes in the form of character, then we will see a better society. What's your take? What do you think? I think I've kind of said a lot of stuff.
Before I just want to say my part before.
Absolutely.
So the way I felt like reading it, and it took a little bit empathizing because I am a married man, so it's like a little bit different. It felt like kind of like cheating on a test. like if you think about it, it felt like cheating on a test because the reality is they're looking at this book. It's like that's what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. Who am I supposed to be?
Yeah.
Because that's how I felt a man would be reading this. It's like all the things that are wrong, I don't want to go in that direction. Mm-hmm. And all the things that are right, let me try to go work towards that.
Yeah. So inshallah, in the future, I would like to write a book specifically for single men. So that's in the future. But I actually would not recommend a man reading this.
Interesting.
So
it's too much.
But that's why you asked for our take first.
So here's the deal, though. See what you said about that. It's like, so if all men know like the playbook of the woman, so they will have an advantage. No, I'm sure some people will sneak in. They will read it. Khalas, we don't control that.
Now, you're not going to catch me walking outside with this book.
No. Yeah, exactly.
It's too pink.
Yeah, the color, like overall, like you're reading this book. But I think it's a good thing. So inshallah, when we have the other book, it is about, so if you know the answers to the test, to the questions in the test, then like, is it just like a rote memorization? You're just saying what she wants to hear, or are you being truly, honestly, like your authentic self? So that's where I'm coming from. But I do believe like some of the steps, some of the overall formula is still the same. The 10-step marriage roadmap, it is the same for men and women. So I talk about finding your Mr. Right. Well, it's finding your, Miss Right. So there are other ways. So some of the criteria, some of the things you're looking for, the way you approach will be slightly different. So I absolutely think that men need to be more aware of it. But I think men they have an advantage in terms of time, in terms of preparation. So yes, people say, well, you know what, women mature faster than men. And I tend to agree, generally speaking, that's true. So that's why, this is like you might disagree with this idea. So let me ask you guys this. So let's say there are two things women look for, like, in terms of physique, like, hey, age or height. So what do you think about a woman, like, you know what, I'm not willing to compromise on both of them, or I'm not willing to compromise on either? What are your takes on that? I
think height is more important. I think women will lean towards height being.
Oh, we're talking about what the woman wants.
Yeah. What's more attractive?
No, I agree.
Height. I would say height.
Because my wife is only a few inches shorter than me. Mm-hmm. On our wedding day, when she was wearing heels, we were the same height. Mm-hmm. And then we did an outfit change. She took off the heels, and
she's like, okay.
And I changed my shoes as well. And then you see this very disparity difference.
Yeah.
So I feel like height is a big kind of like, I mean, sorry to be crass, but turn off if it's in the criteria where it's a problem.
So in terms of age, where do you stand in terms of age?
Age, I feel like it's a bigger playing field, because the reality is the thing that you mentioned with the maturity, having a larger age gap allows for that maturity to develop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is the key. This is why I actually tell women, if you're gonna compromise on age or height, compromise on one, but don't compromise on both. Because there's a literally looking up to. You want to respect your husband. You want to look up to him. Sometimes it could be literal looking up because he's taller than you, or you look up to him in terms of respect and admiration and his achievement because of his age. So if he's a little bit older than you, and men tend to look for someone who is similar age or younger. So that's why, and it's not like, oh, this is something I came up with. This is how the society, this is what culturally people are looking for. So knowing, I think men do have an advantage in that regard, but at the same time, I think we need to really work on, teach our young men to be people that women would respect. And that doesn't mean, I'm not saying to be a yes man. I'm not asking you to lose your identity completely. No. Be yourself. The more you are yourself, the more you have a stronger identity, the more attractive you'll actually be. It's counterintuitive. People think, oh, if I'm going to agree everything she says, it's actually the opposite. So I think, inshallah, I really hope to see a world where topics like this, marriage MBA or like pre-marriage education becomes where, in order to drive on the road, you need a driving license.
Yeah.
Like, I wish there's something similar where, you need to have this before you get married. I know quite a few places, mashallah, some really good marriage officiants. They will not get you married. Like, they will not actually, do the nikah and get married unless you attend some premarital sessions with them. So making sure you're actually making the right decision. They talk about some of the things you'll argue about after marriage. Excellent. And I hope that becomes a norm, that becomes something commonplace, inshallah.
Inshallah. Let the community know, how can they stay in touch with you? How can they find more of your work?
Well, the best place would be to go to the website, lovemistakes.com/Muslim Made, inshallah. You can get the book, and that's where you'll be able to get in touch with me. I'm actually not on social media. My team shares a lot of stuff in there, and so funny story, like many years ago, I did this quiz, like, how addicted are you to Facebook? And in that I scored 33%. And I'm like, what if this was 93%? This was many years ago. And that's it. I just gave up, like, completely. I stopped my Facebook account, and I'm not on social media. It's on my computer if I have to, but no social media app on my phone. And I've asked a lot of single women there who are aware they're actually doing the same thing. So use social media to your benefit, but don't let the algorithm control your life, your outlook, your love life, your future, and all of that. Because if you're in a bubble, you don't get to see any other point of view. You don't get to see anything that is different than what you think of and what you believe in. So the best way would be to go to the website, inshallah.
Amazing. We can't thank you enough for being a part of Muslim Made. Without you, there would be no Muslim Made. So Jazakallah khairan for that. And we hope, like I said, you had as much fun as we did hosting the conversation.
It is an absolute honor. You guys.
Yeah, I felt like a role reversal getting asked.
100%. I gotta be honest. I think I've sweated more on this episode than other episodes. It's definitely uncomfortable talking about something that is a little bit of a taboo within the community. But like you said, it really shouldn't be. And I think we should all be prepared for love.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And, just at the end of the day, we can't thank you enough for it, especially for creating a collaboration for us, a bundle for us to, hopefully empower the community with. So Jazakallah khairan for that. To kind of close it out, again, definitely make sure that you're staying in touch with Sharif Faizullah, his book. We're so proud to be able to collaborate in this way. This has been Muslim Made. And we'll close it out from there. Jazakallah khairan. And we will see you on the next one. Assalamu alaikum.